Hello friends, my name is Nick, and today we're going to spotlight 6 wishlist worthy houseplants. So these are all plants that fall within a group or genus of houseplants that already has some Instagram famous members, and these ones have just been overshadowed by their more famous relatives. So these, just like those more famous Instagram famous plants, I think are just as deserving of a spot on your wish list. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is actually the one that inspired this video today. I talked about this one recently on my Plant of the Week series that I do here on YouTube, where I just share a new plant with you once a week and tell you everything I possibly can about said plant. This is my Sansevieria Pinguecula, or Dracaena pinguicula, as Sansevieria have been reclassified into Dracaena over the last couple years, but I feel like we're going to be calling these more succulent ones Sansevierias for a pretty long time. This common name is called the walking Sansevieria. Perhaps you can see why. This baby plant that I'm so thrilled to be watching finally grow. I've been growing this one for like 2 years, and finally in the last 2 months, I'd say, it's been putting off this baby. Obviously a very slow growing houseplant, but it's been a joy to watch grow. Absolutely so rewarding. It's completely out of the soil. So here's the mother plant here, obviously, and it's still like an inch and a half outside the soil, and this baby is creeping up to like 3 inches outside the soil now. Called the walking Sansevieria because it's walking away from the parent plant, and it's just getting further and further outside the soil in the process, it seems. So such a cool house plant. This is one that I first saw at the Philadelphia Flower Show. There is a bunch of areas to the Philadelphia Flower Show, a renowned gardening show that happens obviously in Philadelphia every year. But I always see this entered in the competition section of the show, and they just look so cool, especially when they have a couple babies and they're just like 6 inches. That would be cool, but no, they're like 6 inches out of the soil. It's just so phenomenal, really outrageous, and just not a type of plant that you're used to seeing. Sansevieria are very common houseplants. I think it's one of the first ones you're going to be recommended if you're a new houseplant enthusiast and you're going into a local houseplant store and are looking for easy plants. So this is 100% an easy houseplant. I'd say this is no more difficult to care for than any plain old Sansevieria. The only difference is that this requires bright sunlight, while some of those more like thinner, strappier ones can be subject to lower light environments, although for, you know, until they start growing, then they're going to look kind of crappy. But this requires bright light settings. Of course, you want it to constantly be growing to its fullest potential. Requires a bright windowsill. It's going to give you a lot of character, and it's much more a conversation piece than any other Sansevieria I grow in my home, or probably any houseplant in general. It's just really unique. Another one that I was introduced to in the competition section of the Philadelphia Flower Show is this lovely begonia right here. So this is a Begonia Vanossa. I feel like every time I go to the Philadelphia Flower Show, I add a couple houseplants to my wish list, and this was just another one of those houseplants that fell subject to my wish list. I've been getting into begonias the past couple years, just like dipping my toes in, and I feel like this last year or so I've been really starting to enjoy them and collect them the way I collect some other houseplants. This one has these really succulent leaves. They are very succulent. If I bent them any more than just this right here, they would snap and break, and I do not want that because this is not the easiest begonia to get your hands on. You can see its unique growth structure, the way it grows very upright on a very succulent stem with all these little like leaf sheaths that are growing on it. They look brown, and I'm sure I can pull them off, and I'm not going to, just because I'm used to like staghorn ferns that turn brown and you're not supposed to remove any of that browning, but I don't know, I'm just gonna leave it. It also looks just kind of fun with this weird sheathing going on, but combined with these large, green, thick, fuzzy, succulent leaves, they are really coated in this like layer of felt, very similar to like a Peperomia Campylotropa. Also, it's blooming. Not the star of the show by any means. I'm much more keen on the foliage and overall structure of this houseplant. This is really just a plant that looks amazing in a plain terracotta pot. No one can tell me otherwise. It just looks fantastic. This one I got from Steve's Leaves, which I'll save you my spiel. You guys have been hearing it enough, but of course I'm going to leave that discount code on screen for you guys. But anyway, such a cool begonia. If you've been trying out some of those more Instagram famous begonias like the Begonia Immaculata, and you've been comfortable with growing those, and you want to try something new and fun. I think Begonia Vanossa is a perfect contender. This thing is just really unique. And I'd say right now, it's my favorite begonia. I think I would be daring enough to say that. This next one I'm pretty sure is just rather new to the market, and that's why it's not as hot as its relatives yet. But I feel like in due time, it might be just as hot. This is my Philodendron Summer Glory. This is very closely related to Philodendron gloriosum, one of the most popular philodendrons on the market. I'm sure you can see it with this leaf right here. This is a hybrid of Philodendron gloriosum and a Bob Macaulay philodendron. I'm not exactly sure which one. I got this recently from Gabriella Plants when I was doing my Gabriella Plants unboxing and shop with me video that I did recently, and this was one of the acquisitions, and I'm very happy that I got this on deck because it's just a very, very unique philodendron. I'm getting the vibe as of right now that this is growing in a self-heading manner, which is, if you're familiar with like Philodendron Rojo Congo or Imperial Red, those philodendrons that grow in a circular manner similar to an agave. I believe Philodendron Birkin is also a type of self-heading philodendron. So this is very different than the standard Philodendron gloriosum, that's the creeping type of philodendron, or a philodendron, I don't know, any other type of philodendron, Squamiferum, I'm having trouble thinking of one, Florida Beauty, any of those fun climbing philodendrons that require moss pole. This is not like that, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, but just from what I'm gathering so far with the look of this houseplant, it's looking much more like it's growing in that self-heading manner. If any of you grow this houseplant, please let me know. I don't want to be misspeaking on the information, but I'm just sharing what I've been learning from my plant thus far. I have this nice new leaf coming in as well, this bright red spike right here. Once I get a couple more leaves on this houseplant, I think I'll be positive on how this growth manner is. But regardless, it's just so neat in the way that it's growing so differently than Philodendron gloriosum and all the other philodendrons that we're used to, but it has that Philodendron gloriosum leaf pattern to it. Not quite the like fuzziness that the gloriosum has, but I still really appreciate that. And I feel like the reason why I'm so excited about this one is because I feel like, for me, particularly, the self-heading varieties of philodendron just don't really do it for me. I've never been a fan of the Birkin. I think I've had some pretty harsh words to share about the Birkin in the past. And I've enjoyed growing some of the other ones like the Imperial Red, but I actually gave my Imperial Red away when I moved to this apartment. I think it's still doing fantastic in the hands of my friends that I gave it to, but I'm not really used to growing this type of philodendron. It's not at the top of my list, so I'm really excited to have this fun, very foliage heavy, I don't know, variety of self-heading philodendron in my home. I think this one, over the next couple of years, is really going to start to stand out. And I'm excited too, because Philodendron gloriosum is just, I was gonna say a nightmare, but it's a headache. That's the word I'm looking for. It's very easy philodendron to grow, but it's a creeping philodendron, and I guess maybe I just plant it too low in the planters, but it's always just reaching the end of the planter, and then I have to propagate it or get a larger planter. I was gonna say extend the planter, but you can't really do that. You gotta just buy a bigger one. But this one is going to stay put. It's just going to continuously stay in this one clump right here. So I think it's kind of just like the best of both worlds when it comes to the Philodendron gloriosum. So yeah, Summer Glory, super cool philodendron. Probably the only plant that I'm talking about today that's like a new addition to the market as of 2022. The next one I'm going to talk about, I feel like is kind of out of left field in comparison to these other ones, but I still really want to talk about it today because I think it's really neat, and I also have another reason in my brain why I want to talk about it today. This is inside a glass cloche, but I'm going to take it out for you guys so that you can get a better look at it. This is just how I'm growing it in my home. So this is my Peperomia Campylotropa. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. This is so cool. I got this recently in my glass houseworks unboxing video. I do them once a year in the online shop with me, and I really took my time getting this one. I feel like I put it in my cart a couple times in the past couple years, but it took until this year, and I am very regretful that I did not bring it into my home sooner. This is just like a clump. All this plant right here, it looks like fungus almost, like the way it's just like, looks like green mushrooms just growing in a clump. I freaking love it. But the reason I really wanted to talk about today is because once upon a time, if you've been growing houseplants for like 5 years plus, you probably remember when the Pilea peperomioides was in full force, or maybe not, that's not quite the word for it, because it was nowhere. the lust for Pilea peperomioides was in full force, but Pilea peperomioides themselves were nowhere to be found, which, oh, Muffin wants to say hello. She's starting to rub against the tripod, which you know is going to be no good. Oh, well, she hates being held, so that's all you get, sweet pea. Anyway, so the Pilea peperomioides, everyone wanted it. I don't know what was like the boost of its popularity. I feel like it probably was Instagram. I feel like this was like 2016, 2017, and the plant craze was really picking up. I feel like this is when like Plantstagrams were really starting. That's at least when I started my plant Instagram. And this was like the plant that you would see it and you'd be like, wait, what is that? I've never seen that before, because, you know, there's only so many plants that were available on the market back then. And then I don't know what happened with the Pilea peperomioides, but everyone wanted it. I was guilty of that. I wanted to grow it myself. And nowadays, you walk into every houseplant store and they have Pilea babies for like $2 or $3, which is a learning lesson in itself. That's a whole topic for another video. Anyway, I really wanted to spotlight this today because this was kind of coined in the past as one of the Pilea peperomioides lookalikes. There's this, there's like the Begonia conchifolia, also a really cool begonia. I've never been able to successfully care for it, but still really cool, and I would try it again. But all these Pilea peperomioides lookalikes, I think, are just so cool, and it's just paying homage, I guess, to the houseplant that started it all. I guess you could argue maybe the fiddly fig was up there with the Pilea peperomioides at the time, but still, I'm paying homage, okay? But this, in comparison to all of the other houseplants I'm talking about today, I feel like is going to cost you pennies. I mean, the other ones aren't like expensive. Nothing I'm talking about today would cost you over $100, but this one should cost you less than $10. At least that's what it cost me. So really cool houseplant. I really wanted to talk about today. Does it have the momentum of some of the other houseplants I'm speaking about today? Not quite. By momentum, I mean, would it be able to gain the popularity of the other ones I'm speaking about today? No, there's no chance in hell about that. But I still really want to talk about today. So kind of like I said, a little out of left field this pick, but I just had to talk about this today because if you also fell victim to the Pilea peperomioides craze of 2017, I think you might as well fall victim to this, but it's going to be a lot more gentle on your wallet. And this one's so fun. This one has me written all over it. This is my Anthurium. Yes, Anthurium polystichum. I think this looks like a Schefflera crossed with a marijuana plant. I think it's just got everything that you want in a vibe of a houseplant. I stuck it in this cream planter here because it's just so vibrant and green and cream always look fantastic together. But this, with this Schefflera-esque vibe, I think would probably not entice many Anthurium growers or Alroy growers in general, just because I don't think Schefflera are a very popular houseplant. I would assume that many people would associate Schefflera with just a common houseplant that you walk into every houseplant store and you find a couple of the smaller leaved arboricolas, maybe you see some larger tree versions of the amate, but don't write off Schefflera. Schefflera nova, my favorite houseplant to this day. It's been for a couple years now, and it will continue to be for at least a couple more, I can guarantee you that, unless something really comes out of nowhere. And maybe I'm just a sucker for a Schefflera, but that makes me a sucker for this houseplant today. And I know that there's so many anthuriums out there with those large, beautiful, heart-shaped leaves with those beautiful, like, crystalline foliage. The Magnificum, the Warachianum, the Clarinervium, just to name a few. And fortunately, those ones have been becoming more widely available and much more inexpensive, which is very exciting because it did not used to be that way. And in today's climate with inflation, everything's getting more expensive, except anthuriums, apparently. But this one's like the one that's not like the other. I don't know. I personally, I'm convinced that anybody who's like more into those heart-shaped crystalline anthuriums are just gonna pass right over this, and that is a mistake. This is giving you all the vibes you need. It's that boho meets tropical, really just right split down the middle in between those two. It's just really giving me everything I need and more. It's been ridiculously easy to grow. And it also grows in a completely different manner than many of the anthurium I'm used to. It grows up like a philodendron would. It's growing up a stem, or honestly, more like a schefflera is giving me that vibe. I don't think this would be able to support itself forever in weight. Like, I think I would need to support it with a bamboo stick or something or other, some kind of support. Unlike a schefflera, that would continue to support itself as long as you're giving it adequate light and it's able to grow a thick enough base. I stuck up my thumb there because this is me envisioning how thick the base of a tree should be at minimum. But yeah, really just such a cool house plant. There's so many reasons to try this one out. I will let you figure out for yourself because I think I've given you like 15 of them at this point. And last but not least, I have to talk about a Hoya today. There's so many incredible Hoyas out there, but this one's been so giving, first of all. My Hoyas are very slow growing, or maybe I'm doing it wrong, but this one's been very giving, and I mean, there's more, but that's the first reason. It's been very giving. This is my Hoya Globulosa. Definitely looking much larger than when you first saw it when I got it in one of my Steve's Leaves unboxings. So that's where you could find this plant online. That's also where I got my Anthurium polystichum. But this, it's so fuzzy. I'm a sucker for fuzzy leaves, and this is just super fuzzy leaves. Particularly the undersides of the leaves are completely encased in this felt. The top sides of the leaves are also fuzzy, but they have a little bit more of like a buttery fuzziness to them, while the back sides just, I just want to rub my face on it. It's so lovely. And on top of that, it's got some really nice veination. It's a little bit more subtle, but it's there. It's definitely there. It's put up all these nice large leaves for me. I love how oblong these leaves are, super elongated, very different from the other Hoyas that I grow. This is giving me much more of like a Hoya multiflora vibe, which I don't know if you can see it that well. It's this one that's flowering behind me here, much more upright. We'll see how long it stays with this one. Obviously, I'm already having to hold it upright with this skewer here, but it's just giving me much more of the overall appearance of my Hoya multiflora, and I am here for it, honey. I love my Hoya multiflora. Added the fuzz, and you have the recipe for one of my favorite Hoyas. At least now it is. In the past couple of months, it's really risen up on my favorites list, particularly because, like I've said 6 times, but it's just been so giving. It's been growing so much, at least much more than I've expected it. Maybe so much to you would be to Timbuktu and back, but this is more than I expected. Just like some of the other houseplants I'm talking about today, not necessarily inexpensive, but it's not gonna cost you as much as some of these other Hoyas that have been just ridiculous in price. And this is a decent size. I got this probably about half the size of this. I feel like it was mostly just these leaves that are, you know, clearly the greenhouse grown ones, the couple that are hanging out down here. It's grown most of this since I brought it into my home, so definitely much more worth it than some of these other Hoyas that are just like 2 leaves and $150, which I don't know who's buying them. It's not me. But yeah, super easy Hoya, super fun. This has been growing on my kitchen counter, which is nowhere near my windows. There's an LED, like, it's not a grow light, but it's an LED just like light that was installed there, but it's just been doing so good. And yeah, fuzzy all over, the stem's fuzzy, the petiole's fuzzy, the leaves fuzzy top and bottom, but those bottom, oh, it just feels so nice. Okay, clearly it's time for me to wrap up this video today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Just to recap, we talked about this lovely and fuzzy Hoya Globulosa. Also, speaking of fuzzy, we have this Begonia Vanossa today, giving you a little throwback it plant vibes, the Peperomia Campylotropa, the inspiration for today's video, the walking Sansevieria or the Sansevieria Pinguecula. We have the hipster Anthurium, the Anthurium polystichum, and last but not least, the plant of the summer, Philodendron Summer Glory, in all of its glory. Thank you again for joining me today. If you don't already, you can follow me on Patreon for even more houseplant content. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at phillyfoliage. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.